Let's be brutally honest right now. That's a big question.
I'm looking for someone who doesn't want to go to base camp, but they want to go to the very top.
Whether it's here, India, New York.
Civilization was born at happy hour.
That's what wins. That's what stands out. That's what people are interested in. That's what I want to know. The Hospopreneurs Podcast with James Henderson. Hello and welcome to episode 132 of the Hospopreneurs Podcast. Bright, bold and instantly recognisable, KeepCup is servicing demand in over 76 countries with offices in LA and London, but remains loyal to its roots in Melbourne, where Abigail and her brother Jamie launched their first reusable cup 10 years ago. A long way since the original search for a more sustainable way to serve food, Abigail joins me with an international presence, B Corp certification and a commitment to becoming carbon neutral by 2025. Folks, so that we can keep the lights on, there's a company I'd like to share with you. It's called Access Collins. Their revolutionary booking and inquiry management software for hospitality is helping operators increase foot traffic, maximize revenue, and tackle no-shows. So if you're looking for a table management and inquiry management system, please do check them out at theaccessgroup.com.au. Now let's get into the show today. Hello and welcome to the show, Abigail.
Hi, James. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. KeepCup is an incredible brand. It's done some amazing things over a number of years now. And my God, I can only imagine what is happening now during the COVID situation in the world, not being able to have that sort of interaction with the customers in cafes. And we're definitely going to open that up today. But Abby, the first question that I have on the program is a crazy hospitality story. So I'd love to know if you have a crazy hospitality story or exceptional hospitality experience.
I do have a lot of, I worked all through uni in hospitality. I've got lots of crazy hospitality stories.
Which one do you have for us today?
So I was working where they had shows and things, and it was really busy and really packed. And I was walking along and I had quite a few plates. On the plates, I had it was like a creme brulee with a raspberry coulis, and one of them just slid off the plate down this woman's white fur coat and into her glow mesh handbag.
So did you tell her what happened?
I don't think I did. No, I didn't.
Oh.
In my great shame, I didn't know. I just kept walking. I think I was on thin ice in my employment. That would be the end of me.
Oh, no. So you didn't tell anybody? You didn't tell the lady? You didn't tell your boss?
No, it slid in there, slid just in neatly into that handbag.
So did you get a promotion after that? Unrelated? Anything like that?
No, it was like a uni job.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story, Abby. I appreciate that. That's certainly crazy. That lady might go crazy after. Who knows what could happen after that one. Abby, the next question I like to ask on the show is around why you do what you do, more of a macro perspective. It can get philosophical. Sometimes it gets abstract. I'd like to know what really inspires you, what makes you get up every day and continue to do the things that you do every day.
I think it's about having a positive impact. Always and always has. And KeepCup is the intersection of a lot of the interests that I've held throughout my life, which is food and hospitality, coffee, the beauty of the natural world, quality things over convenience, all those things. And I think people rise to the level of their incompetence. And this is a job where I'm just at that right intersection where there's enough stimulation and creativity and things to do next, and then challenges as well. So to keep you interested. So I think you've got to have that balance of fulfillment and challenge.
What is it that fundamentally that you are working towards? What is that impact and what is it that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, so my brother and I ran blue bag cafes in Melbourne for 11 years, and over time we just saw the rise of the disposable cup and thought, this is crazy. If our cafe is using this many cups, multiply that by the number of cafes in Melbourne, the number of cafes in the world, there's a massive problem happening here. And then we dug around a little and found that they weren't recyclable because they're plastic coated paperboard, and just thought there's got to be a better way. Like this can't. And also why we, in the late 90s, like a lawyer came into the cafe and said to me, I feel like a baby drinking out of a disposable cup. Like it was to get it to catch on. Like we're all sucking on these disposable cups, eating food in our cars. It's not the right way the world is going. So KeepCup you're really looking at that as a solution to a problem. and to say, how can we, one, stop the waste, two, enjoy our coffee better?
From what I gather there, though, your business has been incredibly successful because of the customization businesses can have and individuals can have over those cups. Is that really what's driven your success, or has it been something else? Is there another factor that you attribute it to?
Oh, no, I don't attribute to that. That's a nice to have, but I think the reason people using KeepCups all the time, and they're probably the most visibly present around the world, is because they're a great product. They've been really carefully designed to work behind the coffee machine as well as in front of the coffee machine. And all those really little simple things about how you drink from it, how you clean it, how it works in a busy service environment, how the lids press on, the materials it's made from, all those things. And then the fact you can customize it and make it your own or choose colorways or the materials, that draws you in. But it's the ability to enjoy a great coffee in it that I think is why we've stood the test of time. And also the sincerity of our mission. Like, we set out to stop people using disposable cups and really campaign to reduce and reuse. And that's been the hallmark of all our communication for the last 12 years. There's a great Glaswegian philosopher, Thomas Carlyle, who said that the merit of originality is not novelty, it's sincerity. So I think that the sincerity of that mission it's baked deeply into the business and the brand and the people and all the things that we do and the way we make decisions.
It's a really interesting perspective on that, and definitely that quote there around sincerity rather than novelty. How else has that influenced and that philosophy? I brought that up there. Do you have other philosophies that have really driven your work?
Well, I think part of, connected to that in a way is our independence as a company. So yeah, the business is run by me. It was previously run by myself and my brother. We don't have investors. We don't have revenue targets. We're just doing what we do, and we get to make our own decisions without, fear or favour about how we do things. Yeah, I think that's part of it. And then also our commitment to quality, the care we take with our supply chain. We just have released a stainless steel cup. And all stainless steel pretty much in the world is made in one city in China. So all the cups you ever see, one city, a couple of factories, and they always come within a plastic bag in a box. And we said to them, we don't want the plastic bag or the box. We just want you to put it in open crates, so they're just pigeonholed on a pallet. And that took a lot of negotiation to do that, and we got it done. But it's just an example of where there's no reward for that. No one knows about that. It doesn't really save us any money, but it's how we believe good business can be done. And hopefully that influences that company to then extend that packing method throughout its supply chain. And lo and behold, you'll be saving like millions of plastic bags that these stainless steel cups and bottles are normally packed in. Another philosophy that I would have is that it's better to have fewer quality things than lots of things. It has to be baked in from the first decision you make about what are we doing, how are we going to do it, and that reduce and reuse and the circular economy principles have to be baked into every decision, even from how you spend your digital ad revenue, those sort of things. Like, who do we want to do business with? Who do we want to partner with? What do we want the world to look like? Is this going to shift us there or take us somewhere else? So I guess it's those things that are really important to me.
So, Abby, you mentioned earlier that you don't have other investors on board, that there's no one else for you to report to, and now you don't work with your brother either. How do you solve these sorts of problems and answer those questions if there's no one who's saying no to the decisions that you make? Yeah,
Dad always says I can just go, if I have a problem, and I can just go and look in the mirror. So my dad has always been a touchstone for me, my mum as well. My brother and I still love to, even this weekend, where I've got a problem with one of the products we're developing, and we had a bit of a brainstorm session about how to resolve it. So both my brothers actually are constant in my life as a touchstone for that. And then the team that I've built over the last 12 years. There's people who work here that worked with me previously at Bluebag. So there's a few people who I've worked with for 20 years who I can rely on to tell me the truth and say, think that's a terrible idea. And my husband. So there's a lot of people that I can turn to, I guess, get input and hear the truth.
Abby, now I know that there must be many baristas out there there's been a customer who's come in, they've got their reusable cup and then they haven't cleaned it. So I want to ask you about single use and hygiene with reusable cups then. So tell me about what is the reality on hygiene and KeepCup.
The reality is that there are a lot of viewpoints about what should be done and how it should be done, whether reusables can and should be used. To our knowledge, there's no one really banning them now, and they are able to be used. But when a big player like Starbucks makes a decision not to serve in single use, it's pretty powerful, and a lot of organisations follow. We know that the plastics industry has been lobbying really hard to repeal single-use bans that we're going to go through in 2020. And at the same time as well, our customers, who are the cafes, have been hit incredibly hard by COVID. So far be it from us to be going in there telling them how to keep their business afloat. But I guess we just urge people to stick with their values. And what are your values and what do you believe is important? Because there are ways to serve coffee that don't involve single-use products. So if you can find those ways and find the cafes that support that or do that yourself, then we would urge you to do that, because we know that in KeepCup's a business that's really founded on individual behaviour change and individuals making decision to do things differently. So we're going back to those first principles, and then with that you create this momentum that drives what is normal behaviour, and hopefully we can steer it back to reuse, reduce and reuse, because the climate crisis is not going away.
Abby, your background has been, as you mentioned, in cafes and then moving to being part of the supply ecosystem. What do you believe hospitality is defined by?
It's a good question. I think hospitality to me is it's sharing and it's community in its best light. So it's sharing food, sharing coffee, sharing wine, being part of a community that you operate in. So you have your customer base or even in your own home. So it's sharing.
Love to know, Abby, what are you learning about or exploring at the moment? Where are you pushing things forward or innovating? What are you learning about? What resources are you looking to acquire new knowledge now?
I think we're looking at what other companies are doing and looking at other people's impact reports for inspiration, but we're working with Edge Environment, who are sustainability experts who are assessing our business. So that gives us insights into where are the hotspots, where are the areas we can have impact, and then how we communicate that to our customers. Yeah, so I think it's really thinking through that. I guess one of the things I'm thinking a lot about at the moment is we've had a few inquiries from the big four, like the EYs and the Deloittes and those and they're now seeing that sustainability is really important. And so they're looking for ways to monetize the opportunities that are presented by sustainability. And really, I think what we've got to do is find other ways to look at profit as the measure of success for business, and how businesses can work through that and how we can put the circular economy into business community. So they're the things I'm thinking a lot about, and what works and what doesn't, and doing a lot of reading. So Kate Woolworth Donut Economy. We're also working with the Bob Brown Foundation because we looked to purchase some land to carbon offset. And then I thought, this is crazy. If we purchase land and yet native forests in Australia can still be cut down, the first step is to go back and go, we need legislation to prevent the logging of native forests. So Bob Brown Foundation is currently involved in legal action for that. So we're supporting that and thinking about how we communicate that and tie that into our story, because a lot of logging is for paper pulp, which goes into single-use packaging. So it all connects up, but then you start to drift from the core mission of your business.
Interesting, because there have been these movements over time, and now what you're talking about is some larger companies that are approaching you to discuss these things. We have seen ESG reporting, and then now we're looking a lot more at sustainability specifically and social entrepreneurship. It's really, all of this is on the rise, and looking at what is actually important for companies of the future. So it's interesting that to hear that from you as well. What are some misconceptions that maybe some larger companies that are looking to these sorts of programs and these philosophies more and more to incorporate them into their businesses? What are some misconceptions that they have around those things?
I think the main issue is that traditionally sustainability is sat as its own function, usually attached to operations. So it's looking at supply chain, looking at audits of their suppliers, and not really looking at what the business is doing fundamentally, where it's creating its revenue, how it's treating its employees, all those things. Like if you really want to be looking at impact and circularity, it needs to be baked into at the level of the business strategy. And that's going to be a hard ask for some of the big incumbents.
So does that mean that you're saying that there could be radical changes and a restructuring of different businesses in the economy?
Yeah, I hope so. think the whole venture capital growing businesses to an enormous size to sell them when they don't even make a profit is just nuts. And they love what's happened with the GameStop. How is that short selling even possible? It doesn't make sense. And yet it's been going on for decades.
I do have an alternative perspective on short selling, given I studied finance, and an economist would argue that short selling provides liquidity for the market. If you want to have a chat about GameStop, happy to. Keep it off the show though, but thanks for bringing that one up, Abby.
No problem.
Abby, I'd love to know what innovations or innovative techniques you've seen in the industry. This could be manufacturing, could be in coffee. You're across a lot of different industries being in the business that you're in. So what have you seen that's changed over your time in it?
The main thing that we've seen, KeepCup started when no one was using a reusable cup at all. And we developed a product that worked and then advocated for reuse and for people to demand that when they went to the cafe. And for a lot of the gateway was the independent cafe scene who saw the amount of disposable cups they went through and thought, yeah, there must be a better way. So they supported it. But then people have gone to, well, who's going to wash my cups? We hear from cafes that people bring in dirty cups and expect the barista to wash them, which is pretty gross. And so then you've got these schemes where there's this like a shared scheme, like a shared bike scheme, shared coffee scheme where you wash. And really it's just kicking down the road the problem of who will wash my product. And then we've got Loops come out of TerraCycle, and it's a system where they're getting some of the bigger brands to, say, serve Haagen-Dazs ice cream in a refillable container, so a stainless steel container. But they set up the system for that to happen, but the washing is still outsourced. So we joke, who will wash my cup? There's something needs to happen in the industry where either we develop some really big industrial washing facilities where we can return and reuse, or they're more community-based. But this idea of reuse and refill is catching hold, but it requires some smaller players to try and fail and prove the market demand before your bigger players like Unilever and McDonald's will step forward and support it through their systems. But it's coming. It's got to come. We just can't. The amount of single-use packaging of all the plastic ever made in the world in the last 50 years, 60 years, only 9% of it's ever been recycled.
A staggering statistic there as well. So then do you see the hospitality experience changing quite dramatically then as well? Or is it that people are just going to be drinking out of different containers and those containers may be washed commercially off-site?
I don't know the answer to that. The other thing is there's enormous pressure on the coffee industry itself with climate change and the coffee rust and the price of the bean. So coffee itself is going to creep up in price. So this idea that you just get this fuel and you drink it in a paper cup and bin it. There's the idea that you might have this washing service where people's cutlery and crockery is washed centrally and then returned to cafe community, or that people decide, well, and this is the interesting part of COVID, like people have started working from home. That rush to get the coffee in a city cafe has all but died, and people are going out to their suburban cafes where they don't necessarily have the same time pressure about when they drink their coffee. So people's habits have started to change. And does that mean that people will go, hang on, I don't really want to drink my coffee in the car. I'd like to sit down and enjoy it in a cafe. Cafe culture is starting to shift as well as a consequence of the pandemic in terms of working from home.
Abby, how do you come up with all the products that you have, all the new products coming out? Obviously, you've got this customization and colors. And what really has driven that? Is it the demand from the customer and different businesses and corporates who want their own brand on the cup, or customers who just want their name or they want something different that's printed on there? How do you actually come up with those products?
We've got various sizes and various materials that we use, and I guess they're really around the occasion of what you're using the product for. So if you're, at uni and you're walking around in a backpack and you don't know when you're going to have a coffee, like the plastic cup's pretty convenient. If you're going from cafe to desk or cafe to home, the glass is beautiful. And then our Canadian distributor said to us, it's -4 in Calgary. The glass doesn't cut it. So we've now done a double wall stainless steel. So they're all looking at different occasions to replace disposable cups. And I guess to be original and have a bit of a point of difference in how we do it. But I guess the defining criteria is this idea of being barista standard. So it's easy for the coffee maker to make the coffee behind the machine in a KeepCup. And then it's easy to use and clean and has a really nice drinking experience. So that's how we come up with whether we do new products. And then colour is just a way to stimulate interest and demand. And there's a fashion is passion, that sort of thing. But relative to other brands, we don't do a lot of patterning or customisation.
How do you actually get into the mental state to do that and to play with those creative ideas, though? You mentioned before that you brainstormed with your brother. So, what is that creative process that you go through? How do you get into a mental state to develop those ideas?
It's probably the sweet spot of what my brain likes to be doing. I always had quite a creative brain, and I think I do, and I have a good eye for design, but I'm good at looking at a process and making a process more efficient or starting. Like I'm quite good at the start of an idea, so the big picture part of it, whereas my brother and some of the other people I work with are very good at the detail and can hold the detail and look at the more nuts and bolts of it. So I think it's always about getting a good group of people around you where you can have a bit of a robust creative discussion and get a bit of a flow going, and then you go away and beaver away at something on your own. I usually just use a pencil and paper, or we're all obsessed with this program called Lucid Chart at work. So, you used to have PowerPoint where you got to have 20 million PowerPoints. I can't stand it. And now Lucid Chart is this chart that never ends. So you just can do your mind map or have your idea or create a process, and it can just go, there's no limit to page. So we've all found that pretty fun and a great way to collaborate, particularly as we've been working remotely.
I like that, lucid chart. So on that though, you said it's a sweet spot that your brain wants to be in. So are you looking for people that you work with to be telling you and rejecting your ideas if you're good at the start of that process? You want the black hat thinkers who are going to be shutting down your ideas. What's sort of the dialogue then or the process that you go through?
Yeah, I get what you're saying about black hat, but I don't really respond particularly well to negativity. I like to build on something. But yeah, certainly to say, no, that's a terrible idea or take it in another direction, that is important to me because I can go off on as you've seen in this interview, can go off on a tangent. Yeah, I've got people who sort of rein stuff in and then will follow through with the detail.
Do you know what it is that really gets you thinking in that way though? Are you saying that you're just naturally there and you don't know how you get that way?
No, I think like one of the things I remember most in my early years at school was in year 9, they showed us the Milgram experiments, which was a video where they got people in white coats. They pulled people in off the street, and if they got an answer wrong to a question, they gave them electric shock. And people just gave other people electric shocks, and they weren't doctors. It was just a social experiment. And that struck me so profoundly that you can have ways of doing things or ways of seeing things that cultural norms that are no good. So I think it's something that's always interested me. And even starting KeepCup, I read Jared Diamond's book Collapse, where he talks about how on Easter Island there are all those giant statues and they were built as a cultural thing. But in doing so, they chopped down all the trees on the island. And within generations, there were no trees, there were just saplings, and people didn't even know they'd cut down the last tree. So that's sort of incremental, the way Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. Like I love all that stuff. Like it's not all the fodder that we're seeing on our Instagram account that's influencing us. It's the fact we're looking at the Instagram account and flicking through images and understanding things through images, and those things I find really fascinating and really enjoy thinking about. Because the thing is, people always say to me, what's the aim of KeepCup? And the aim of KeepCup really is that people go, what a quaint artifact. What the hell did you use that for? And we have these moments where KeepCup came in at a point where everyone's using a disposable cup. It presented an alternative, and hopefully it presents an alternative way. It's not the cup. The cup's just a vessel for the cultural change we're trying to carry, which is don't go for convenience. Don't eat single-use products. It's not very nice. It's not a great way to live. There's a whole lot of things in my mind, I bolt onto those things. So when we're thinking about the business and what we're doing next, it's just trying to shift those and have those bigger conversations, which are much more interesting.
Abby, I'd really like to know what your biggest challenge is right now. I know that you were still operating the warehouse during lockdown in Melbourne, and then people have come back to the office and now they're able to see each other in person again for the first time. I'm guessing that's certainly something that you're dealing with. But more broadly, what is the biggest challenge that you're dealing with right now?
There's probably 3 big challenges. We've got a new product that we're trying to launch, and there's some issues around the tuning of that product and some changes we need to make. So just nutting that out with the designers, our team and the manufacturers is taking up a lot of brain space to get that right and get that moving. We're also just on the cusp of launching a B2B website. So that's been a 4-year project to get that up and running. So that will give our cafe customers and our distributors the ability to order online, which is is great. And then I guess the other thing is just thinking about the mental health. I think I've never had so many conversations or so much thought about the mental health of the team during the last year. And that's probably primarily been the outcome internally about COVID.
Thank you for sharing 3 challenges that you're dealing with right now, Abby. I just have one last question for you today. I'd like to know who you'd like to hear on the show.
Oh, I'd love to hear Andrew McConnell. I've given a lot of my wages and my time to having great times at his restaurants over the years, so I'd love to hear from him.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining me on the program today. Abby, it's been a pleasure having you on and hearing more about your journey and KeepCup. So thank you again.
No worries, James. Thank you.
This program is hosted by James Henderson with technical production by Jake Olver. Voiceovers were by Angus Brennan and Shim Phelan. Thanks to our distribution team, and a special thanks to you for tuning in every week. This program was produced by H Media. We'll see you soon.